In a quiet little town where the nights were calm and the stars twinkled like diamonds, there lived a man named Alex. He was an ordinary person, leading a simple life. Alex worked as a librarian, spending his days surrounded by books, lost in stories of adventure and far-off lands. But in his heart, he felt a deep loneliness. Despite the many people who visited the library, no one seemed to truly understand him. He often dreamed of something extraordinary happening in his life, but he never expected it would come in such a strange form. One evening, as the sun began to set and the sky turned a beautiful shade of orange, Alex settled down on his couch with a cup of tea and a book. He loved these quiet moments when the world outside felt distant and all that mattered was the story in front of him. But tonight, something felt different. An uneasy feeling settled in his stomach, and he couldn't shake the sensation that something unusual was about to happen. Just as he flipped the page, a loud knock echoed through his home, making him jump. It was a sound unlike any he had ever heard before. It was sharp and urgent, reverberating through the walls. Curiosity piqued. He set his book down and walked cautiously to the door. Who could it be at this hour? As he opened the door, Alex's heart raced. Standing before him was a woman, but not just any woman. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen. She had striking features with emerald green skin that shimmered under the dim porch light. Her hair flowed like liquid silver, cascading down her shoulders, and her eyes glowed with a soft, radiant light. Alex's breath caught in his throat. This was no ordinary visitor. "Help me," she said, her voice melodic yet tinged with fear. The words came out in a strange but beautiful tone, sounding almost musical. Alex blinked, trying to process what he was seeing. His mind raced with questions. Who was she? Where did she come from? Why was she here? What do you need?" Alex stammered, his voice shaky. The alien woman looked around nervously, as if she feared being seen. Her eyes darted from side to side, scanning the dark street behind her. She stepped closer, her presence both captivating and intimidating. "I am in danger. I need a safe place," she explained, her expression serious. Alex felt a rush of sympathy. He could see the fear in her glowing eyes, and instinctively, he wanted to help her. "Come in," he said, opening the door wider. The alien woman hesitated for a moment, glancing back at the shadows of the street. Then, with a quick breath, she stepped inside. Alex closed the door behind her, locking it tightly. He knew he had to keep her safe, but he also felt a wave of anxiety wash over him. What if someone was looking for her? "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Alex could see the relief on her face as she took in her surroundings. The warmth of the small living room contrasted with the coolness of the night outside. "What's your name?" Alex asked, trying to keep the conversation going and ease the tension. "I am Lyra," she replied, her voice softening as she spoke. "I come from a distant planet. My ship was attacked, and I had to escape." Alex listened intently as she explained her situation. Lyra described a beautiful world filled with vibrant colors and strange creatures, a place where the sky shimmered like a jewel and the forests sang with life. But her voice faltered when she spoke of the attackers. "They want to capture me because I know too much," she said, her eyes wide with fear. "Capture you?" Alex echoed, trying to wrap his mind around the idea. The thought of Lyra being hunted sent a shiver down his spine. He could hardly believe what he was hearing, yet he felt an undeniable connection to her. Here was a woman from another world, standing in his living room, and he felt the urge to protect her. Suddenly, there was a loud noise outside, a deep rumble that shook the ground. Lyra jumped, her eyes filled with terror. "They're here," she gasped, backing away from the window. Alex rushed to the curtain and peeked outside. In the dim light, he could see strange shadows moving down the street, and his heart raced with panic. "What should we do?" he asked, turning back to Lyra. Her expression was frantic, and she looked like a frightened animal cornered by predators. "We need to hide," Lyra whispered urgently. Alex nodded, his mind racing. He quickly led her to a small closet in the hallway, filled with old coats and boxes. "In here," he urged, pushing her inside. She hesitated but then stepped in, her eyes wide with fear. As he closed the door, he could hear the strange creatures outside, their voices a mix of growls and clicks. They were searching for Lyra, and Alex's heart pounded in his chest. He felt a surge of determination. He couldn't let them take her. He quickly moved to the front window and peered through the curtain. The creatures were closing in, their dark forms casting long shadows across his lawn. They looked menacing, their eyes scanning the area, searching for their prey. Alex held his breath, hoping they wouldn't notice him or the hidden alien woman in his home. The minutes felt like hours as he stood there, heart racing, waiting for the danger to pass. He could feel the weight of Lyra's fear pressing against him, and he knew he had to do everything in his power to keep her safe. Little did he know that this unexpected visitor would change his life forever, leading him into a world filled with adventure, danger, and a bond that transcended the stars. As the minutes dragged on, Alex stood at the window, his heart pounding with anxiety. The shadows outside were now joined by strange sounds, hisses and growls that sent chills down his spine. He glanced back at the closet, where Lyra was hidden, and he could only imagine the fear that gripped her. She was not just an alien. She was a living being with hopes and dreams, now forced to hide in his home because of some unknown danger. He took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. He needed to think clearly. What should he do next? If he let Lyra stay in the closet, it might be safe for now, but what if those creatures found her scent or detected her presence? They would surely search the house. He couldn't allow that to happen. Just then, the front door rattled violently, and Alex jumped. He rushed to the door, locking it tighter as the noises grew louder outside. He peered through the peephole and saw a tall figure, its silhouette unnaturally elongated and thin. Its eyes glowed eerily in the darkness, scanning the area. Alex's heart sank. They were looking for Lyra, and he had no idea how they would react if they found her. "Stay quiet," he whispered to the closet, though he knew Lyra could hear him. The thought of her sitting there, frightened and alone, made his stomach churn. He needed to get her out of that closet and into a safer place. After a moment of contemplation, he decided to take a risk. He quickly grabbed a few blankets from the couch and draped them over a chair, creating a makeshift barrier. If he could distract the creatures outside, it might give Lyra the chance to escape through the back door. He took one last look at the closet, feeling a wave of protectiveness wash over him. "Stay here until I come back for you," he murmured, hoping she could understand. With a nod, he steeled himself and stepped out into the living room, ready to confront whatever waited outside. As he approached the back door, the sounds from the front intensified. The creatures were becoming more agitated, and he could hear their claws scraping against the wooden floor. With a deep breath, he opened the back door just a crack, peering into the darkened alley behind his house. The alley was silent, save for the distant sounds of the creatures still prowling near the front. Alex took a chance. He stepped outside, closing the door quietly behind him. He glanced left and right, spotting a nearby tree with low-hanging branches. If he could climb it, he might have a better view of what was going on. As he made his way to the tree, he could hear the growls becoming more frantic. It was a race against time. He scrambled up the trunk, his hands gripping the rough bark, and nestled into the branches. From his vantage point, he could see the front yard. What he saw made his heart race even faster. Two tall, alien figures were now standing at his front door, their long limbs and glowing eyes scanning the area as they sniffed the air. Alex watched, frozen in fear, as they exchanged low, guttural sounds, clearly communicating with each other. He had to warn Lyra somehow. But how? Suddenly, one of the creatures turned its gaze toward the house, and Alex's breath hitched in his throat. He could feel the fear coursing through him, but he knew he had to stay calm. If they found Lyra, she would be in grave danger. With quick thinking, he grabbed a handful of leaves and broke off a few small branches, then started shaking them to create noise. He hoped to divert the creature's attention away from the house. The sounds caught the attention of the aliens, who immediately turned to investigate. "Now's your chance, Lyra," he thought, hoping she would understand to escape while they were distracted. He watched anxiously, knowing he had to keep making noise to keep their focus away from the house. The creatures moved toward the sounds, their glowing eyes illuminating the darkness as they stepped closer to the tree. Alex's heart raced. He could see the tension in their movements. They were getting agitated, sniffing the air and looking around, clearly trying to locate the source of the disturbance. Just as they turned back to the house, Alex let out a loud shout. "Hey, over here!" he yelled, trying to sound brave and confident. The creatures whipped their heads toward him, their eyes narrowing in suspicion. It worked. They were intrigued and began to move in his direction. Alex felt a rush of adrenaline. He needed to keep them away from Lyra. He climbed higher into the tree, positioning himself so he could keep an eye on both the creatures and the house. From this height, he could see the front door clearly. To his relief, he saw Lyra peeking out cautiously from the closet. "Please," he whispered to himself, "just stay hidden." The creatures approached the base of the tree, their claws scraping against the ground as they circled it. Alex's mind raced as he tried to think of a way to escape. He could hear their low growls, and he knew he couldn't hold their attention forever. Suddenly, he remembered the bag of gardening tools he kept near the shed. If he could throw something to distract them, it might buy Lyra the time she needed to escape. He quickly climbed back down a few branches, careful not to make any noise that would alert them. Once he reached a lower branch, he took a deep breath and quietly maneuvered himself towards the shed. He could see the tools shining faintly in the moonlight. If he could just grab a shovel or rake, he could throw it far enough away to lead them off his trail. With careful movements, he swung himself down and landed softly on the ground. He hurried to the shed, grabbed a small shovel, and flung it toward the opposite end of the yard. The shovel landed with a loud clank, and the creatures immediately turned, their attention now focused on the noise. "Come on, Lyra," he thought desperately as he peered back at the house. He could barely see her now, but he hoped she was making her move. As the creatures darted towards the sound, Alex felt a wave of relief. He climbed back up to the branches, peeking through the leaves to see what would happen next. After a tense few moments, he spotted Lyra slipping out of the back door, her movements graceful yet cautious. His heart soared with hope. She was escaping. But just as she reached the yard, one of the creatures turned back, sensing her presence. "No," Alex whispered, his heart racing again. He couldn't let them capture her. He needed to act fast. With renewed determination, he threw another item, a pot from the shed, this time aiming for a nearby bush. The loud crash drew the creature's attention again, and Alex watched as Lyra sprinted towards the alley. "Run," he urged silently, his heart pounding as he kept an eye on both Lyra and the creatures. As Lyra reached the safety of the alley, Alex couldn't help but feel a rush of pride. She was brave, and he felt connected to her in that moment, united against a common enemy. But as he looked back at the creatures, he realized they were still searching. He knew they would not stop until they found her. With a heavy heart, he climbed down from the tree, deciding to join Lyra and help her escape. He dashed toward the alley, glancing back to see the creatures still prowling near the house. The danger was far from over, but together they had a fighting chance. "Lyra," he called out softly, hoping she could hear him. He needed to find her and plan their next move. It was the beginning of a new chapter in their lives, one filled with uncertainty, danger, and perhaps the start of an extraordinary friendship that would change everything. Alex sprinted down the alley, his heart racing as he searched for Lyra. The adrenaline coursing through him fueled his every step. He glanced back toward the house, where the creatures were still prowling, their glowing eyes scanning for any sign of their quarry. The weight of the situation hung heavily on his shoulders. He needed to protect Lyra at all costs. As he rounded the corner, he spotted her crouched behind a dumpster, her wide eyes filled with fear and uncertainty. Relief washed over him. "Lyra," he whispered urgently, crouching down beside her. "We need to move quickly." Lyra nodded, her alien features still strikingly beautiful, even in the shadows. Her blue skin glimmered faintly under the streetlight, a reminder of how different she was from him. Yet in that moment, they were united by a shared struggle. "Where do we go?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. The innocence in her question struck Alex hard. She was lost in a world that was both unfamiliar and dangerous. "Follow me," he urged, gesturing toward a narrow path that led away from the alley. "We can find a safe place to hide until we figure out what to do next." They moved quickly, weaving through backyards and avoiding the main streets. The neighborhood was quiet, but the distant growls of the creatures reminded Alex that they were still being hunted. Each sound sent a jolt of fear through him, but he pushed it aside, focusing on getting Lyra to safety. As they ducked into an overgrown garden, Lyra caught her breath. "Why are they after me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What do they want?" Alex hesitated, trying to find the right words. "I don't know," he admitted, his brow furrowed in concern. "But I won't let them hurt you. We'll figure this out together." They crouched low, hidden among the tall grass and wildflowers. As Lyra calmed, Alex couldn't help but marvel at her resilience. Despite the terror she had faced, she showed an inner strength that was inspiring. He felt a growing bond with her, something deeper than mere friendship. It was as if they were both outsiders in their own worlds, finding solace in one another. After a moment, Lyra looked up at him, her alien eyes reflecting the moonlight. "You helped me when you didn't have to. Why?" Alex shrugged, a mixture of confusion and determination swirling within him. "Because it's the right thing to do. No one should be hunted or treated like that, no matter where they come from." She smiled, a soft, genuine expression that warmed his heart. "Thank you, Alex. You're brave." He felt a flush of pride, but quickly turned his thoughts back to their situation. "We need to find a way to get you off this planet, or at least to a safer place, until we can figure out who those creatures are and what they want." Suddenly, a noise broke the stillness, a sharp, snapping sound nearby. Alex's heart raced as he peered through the bushes, spotting the creatures emerging into the garden, their elongated forms moving with a predatory grace. They were searching for them. "Stay quiet," he whispered, pushing closer to Lyra. The creatures' glowing eyes scanned the area, their snouts twitching as they picked up on the faintest of scents. Alex could see their powerful muscles rippling beneath their skin, a reminder of their strength and speed. Just when Alex thought they might be discovered, one of the creatures turned abruptly, darting toward a different part of the garden, drawn by another noise. The second creature followed suit, leaving a momentary window for Alex and Lyra. "Now's our chance," Alex whispered urgently, grabbing Lyra's hand and pulling her to her feet. They took off, moving swiftly through the garden toward a small shed at the far end. It was a risk, but hiding inside seemed like their best option for now. Once they reached the shed, Alex opened the door slowly, wincing at the creak. Inside, it was dark and musty, filled with old tools and forgotten equipment. They slipped in and closed the door behind them, listening intently for any signs of pursuit. "What do we do now?" Lyra asked, her voice trembling slightly. Alex leaned against the door, trying to catch his breath. "We wait and see if they pass by. We'll need a plan. I can't just let them capture you." Lyra nodded, her eyes darting around the dim interior. "I wish I could understand why they want me. I came here seeking peace, not trouble." He felt a pang of sympathy for her. "I know. And I'm sorry you're caught up in this." As they sat in the dim light, he realized they were both more than just their backgrounds. They were two individuals thrown together by fate, and he was determined to protect her. As they waited, the sounds of the outside world began to fade, replaced by the eerie quiet of the shed. Lyra's expression grew serious, and Alex could see she was deep in thought. "Do you think they'll follow us here?" she asked, her voice filled with worry. "Maybe," he replied cautiously. "But if they do, I'll make sure to distract them again. We'll find a way out." Lyra looked at him, her eyes wide. "What if they find out I'm not alone? What if they come looking for you?" "I'll be ready," he promised, his voice firm. "I won't let them hurt you." The minutes dragged on, and the tension in the air felt palpable. Alex glanced around the shed, searching for anything they could use as a weapon or tool. The rusted shovel leaned against the wall, and he picked it up, weighing it in his hands. It was old, but it would serve its purpose if needed. Just then, they heard the unmistakable sounds of footsteps approaching, followed by the guttural growls of the creatures. Alex's heart dropped. "They're here," he whispered, gripping the shovel tightly. "Hide," he urged, pushing Lyra behind a stack of old boxes. He positioned himself near the door, ready to confront whatever came through. The door rattled as the creatures tested it, and Alex's heart raced. He could hear them sniffing the air, their breath heavy and labored. The tension built as they began to speak to one another in their strange, alien language, their voices filled with urgency. "Stay quiet," Alex whispered to Lyra, knowing she could hear the creatures just as clearly as he could. He could feel the weight of their eyes, searching, probing. They were looking for her, and he had to buy them time. As the door creaked open, Alex swung the shovel, aiming to hit the creature nearest to him. The metal clanged against its side, causing it to stagger back. "Run, Lyra," he shouted, but she was already moving, darting past him, and out into the open. He followed closely behind, adrenaline propelling him forward. They sprinted through the narrow space between the shed and a nearby fence, praying that the creatures wouldn't catch up. "Where to now?" Lyra gasped, glancing back at the shed, where the creatures were now scrambling out. "There." Alex pointed to a small wooded area beyond the fence. "We can lose them in there." They dashed toward the trees, ducking under branches and leaping over fallen logs. The shadows of the forest enveloped them, providing a momentary sense of safety. But the distant sounds of their pursuers reminded them that the danger was far from over. As they pushed deeper into the woods, the adrenaline began to wane, replaced by a sense of urgency and fear. Alex could feel Lyra's presence beside him, her determination dragging them forward. They needed a plan, and they needed it fast. Once they reached a clearing, they stopped to catch their breath, leaning against a tree trunk for support. "What now?" Lyra asked, her voice laced with worry. "We can't keep running forever," Alex replied, his mind racing. "We need to find a way to confront them or learn why they're after you." Lyra nodded, her expression resolute. "You're right, but how do we do that?" "Maybe I can communicate with them," Alex suggested, feeling a flicker of hope. "I've seen some sci-fi movies where people talk to aliens. We might be able to reason with them, or at least learn what they want." Lyra raised an eyebrow, a hint of amusement breaking through her tension. "You want to talk to them? After what just happened?" He chuckled nervously. "Okay, maybe it's a crazy idea, but we can't just run forever. We need answers, and if it means putting myself at risk, then I will." She placed a hand on his arm, her touch comforting. "You don't have to put yourself in danger for me, Alex. I can face them. I'm not helpless." "No," he insisted, shaking his head. "We face this together. You're not alone anymore." Their eyes locked for a moment, a silent understanding passing between them. They had become a team, bound by shared danger and a budding friendship that transcended their differences. With a newfound resolve, they began to formulate a plan. They would need to find a way to lure the creatures to them, to create a situation where they could communicate without fear of immediate danger. "Let's create a distraction," Lyra suggested. "Something that will draw them in but give us the chance to talk." Alex nodded, excitement bubbling in his chest. "I can make some noise, maybe set something off to get their attention. Then we can approach them from a safe distance." "Great idea," Lyra replied, her eyes shining with determination. "Let's do it." As they prepared their plan, Alex felt a surge of hope. Together, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. With Lyra by his side, he was ready to confront the unknown, to bridge the gap between their worlds and find the truth behind the hunt. They moved stealthily back toward the edge of the woods, determined to turn the tide in their favor. No matter what dangers awaited them, they would tackle them together. As Alex and Lyra crouched behind the thick bushes at the edge of the woods, they could hear the distant growls of the creatures, echoing through the trees. The adrenaline still coursed through Alex's veins as he clutched the makeshift weapon, a branch he had snapped off from a nearby tree. It wasn't much, but it would serve as a last resort if things went sideways. Lyra, beside him, was focused, her expression a mixture of determination and anxiety. "Do you really think this will work?" she asked quietly, her voice barely a whisper. Alex nodded, his mind racing with the plan they had just crafted. "We need to make some noise to draw them in, then we can try to talk. If we can communicate with them, maybe we can figure out why they're after you." "Okay," Lyra replied, her blue skin shimmering slightly under the dappled sunlight. "But we have to be careful. If they sense we're close, they might attack." He glanced at her, admiring her bravery despite the fear that laced her words. "We'll be cautious. Let's start by creating a distraction over there." He pointed to a pile of leaves and branches a few feet away. "If we can make it look like something is moving, it should get their attention." "Good idea," Lyra said, her face lighting up with excitement. Together, they carefully gathered sticks and leaves, creating a small pile that would rustle easily. As they worked, they listened intently for any signs of the creatures. Once they felt satisfied with their setup, Alex took a deep breath, steeling himself for what they needed to do. "I'll throw this rock at the pile to create a noise," he said, picking up a small stone. "Then we'll hide behind that tree." "Got it," Lyra nodded, her eyes focused on the pile of leaves, ready to spring into action. With his heart racing, Alex threw the rock, and it hit the pile with a satisfying crack. Leaves flew into the air, and for a brief moment, silence hung in the air. Then the growls intensified, and the creatures' glowing eyes appeared through the trees, their forms silhouetted against the fading light. "Now," Alex hissed, and they both darted behind a large tree trunk, pressing their bodies against the rough bark as they held their breath, hearts pounding. The creatures moved cautiously toward the noise, their elongated bodies shifting and weaving between the trees. Alex peered around the trunk, catching glimpses of their muscular forms. His heart sank as he noticed their razor-sharp teeth glinting in the dim light. "Stay quiet," he whispered, feeling Lyra tense beside him. As the creatures reached the pile of leaves, they began to sniff around, their growls low and menacing. Alex watched, hoping the ruse would hold. He could feel Lyra's body next to him, steady and resolute, and he found strength in her presence. After a moment, one of the creatures growled loudly, clearly agitated. It began to stomp its feet, digging into the ground and scattering leaves everywhere. "They're not happy," Alex muttered under his breath. Suddenly, the first creature turned and began moving deeper into the woods, followed by the others. Alex felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. It worked. "They're leaving. Now we can follow them," Lyra said, her voice low but excited. "Wait," Alex replied, pulling her back slightly. "We have to be smart about this. If they sense us, it could turn dangerous." They waited a moment longer, listening as the growls faded into the distance. Once the sounds had diminished enough for comfort, Alex turned to Lyra. "Let's go. but stay close. As they carefully made their way through the underbrush, the shadows began to lengthen, and the forest felt increasingly alive. Every rustle and snap made Alex's heart race, but he pushed forward, driven by the need to protect Lyra and uncover the truth. They reached a small clearing where the creatures had gathered, and Alex and Lyra hid behind a thick tree trunk. From their vantage point, they could see the creatures communicating, their guttural sounds echoing through the trees. It was clear they were agitated, their movements sharp and erratic. "What do you think they're saying?" Lyra whispered, her eyes wide with curiosity. "I don't know," Alex replied, watching intently. "But it seems like they're frustrated about something." Just then, one of the creatures, larger than the rest, stepped forward. It raised its head high and let out a series of sharp barks that reverberated through the clearing. The other creatures responded, their voices harmonizing in an unsettling chorus. "I think they're trying to organize themselves," Lyra noted, her brow furrowing. "Maybe they're discussing how to find us." Alex nodded. "We need to make our presence known, on our terms." He glanced around, scanning the area for anything that could help. He spotted some rocks nearby, and an idea formed in his mind. "I'll throw a rock to distract them," he said, looking at Lyra. "When they turn to investigate, we'll move closer to listen." "Okay," she replied, her voice steady. "Just be careful." Taking a deep breath, Alex picked up a sizable rock and threw it toward the opposite side of the clearing. It landed with a loud thud, creating a startling noise. The creatures immediately turned, their glowing eyes darting toward the sound. Alex watched with bated breath as they shifted their focus, moving away from their previous conversation. "Now," he whispered, and he and Lyra dashed into the clearing, sticking to the shadows. They crept closer, trying to remain unseen as they listened intently to the creatures' dialogue. To Alex's surprise, he began to catch snippets of their language, words and sounds forming phrases he could almost understand. "They're looking for her," one of the creatures growled, its voice deep and menacing. Lyra's eyes widened. "They know I'm here. They want me." "They're also talking about the signal," Alex said, narrowing his eyes. "I think it might be something that could lead them to you." "What does that mean?" Lyra asked, her voice tinged with worry. "I don't know," Alex admitted, "but it sounds important. We have to find out what it is." Just then, the larger creature turned and caught a glimpse of movement, its eyes locking onto Alex and Lyra. "Over there," it howled, causing the others to spin around. "Run," Alex yelled, grabbing Lyra's hand as they bolted toward the tree line, branches whipping against them as they dashed away. The sound of the creatures pursuing them echoed behind, their growls growing louder. "Where do we go?" Lyra gasped, glancing back as they ran. "There's a cave up ahead," Alex shouted, pointing toward a dark entrance between two towering rocks. "We can hide there." They reached the cave just in time, slipping inside and pressing against the cool stone walls. The sound of their pursuers faded momentarily, but the tension in the air was palpable. "We can't stay here long," Alex said, panting as they caught their breath. "We need to figure out how to stop them from chasing you." "What if they find us here?" Lyra asked, her voice trembling. "They won't if we can figure out what that signal is," Alex replied. "If it leads them to you, we need to destroy it or find a way to disrupt their search." As they huddled in the cave, the darkness around them felt heavy, but within it, a flicker of hope ignited. They were in this together, two unlikely allies facing an unimaginable threat. Together, they would uncover the truth behind Lyra's pursuers and find a way to protect each other in a world that seemed determined to keep them apart. "Let's come up with a plan," Lyra said, determination filling her voice. "We can't let them win." Alex nodded, feeling a surge of pride and purpose. "We'll find a way. We always do." With that, they began brainstorming, their minds racing with ideas as the darkness around them transformed into a canvas for their hopes and dreams. In that cave, They forged a bond stronger than any challenge that lay ahead. Together, they would confront whatever dangers awaited them, ready to face the unknown. As the cool darkness of the cave enveloped Alex and Lyra, a sense of urgency filled the air. They had just escaped the terrifying pursuit of the alien creatures, but their safety was still precarious. The faint echoes of growls outside reminded them that danger was never far away. "We need to figure out what that signal is," Alex said, his voice low but steady. "It's clearly something important to them." He glanced around the cave, the rough walls illuminated only by the faint light filtering in from the entrance. "Do you know anything about it?" Lyra frowned, her brow furrowing in concentration. "I've heard whispers about the signal before. It's a beacon that alerts other creatures of my kind. It's used to guide them to places where they can find help or shelter. But it's also a way for them to locate those they consider their own." "So, they're trying to find you through this signal?" Alex asked, piecing together the puzzle. "Yes," she confirmed, her voice growing tense. "If they manage to activate it, they could bring in more of their kind. We have to stop that from happening." Alex nodded, his resolve hardening. "Okay, but how? Do you have any idea where they might be keeping this signal?" The alarm blared louder, and the device began to shake slightly, as if it were coming to life. Come on," Alex muttered, feeling the weight of time pressing down on them. With one final press, the lights on the device flickered violently, and then everything went silent. Lyra gasped, her hands trembling as she looked up at Alex. "I think I did it. I shut it down." Just then, the creatures burst into the clearing, their eyes wide with fury and confusion as they searched for the source of the noise. Alex and Lyra quickly ducked behind the device, their hearts pounding in unison as they waited for the right moment to escape. "We have to go," Alex urged, feeling the panic rise within him. "Wait," Lyra said, her eyes focused on the creatures. "If we just run, they'll chase us. We need a way to confuse them again." "Like what?" Alex asked, his mind racing. "If we can find something to throw to the other side of the clearing, it might distract them long enough for us to slip away," Lyra suggested. "Okay, let's do it," Alex replied, scanning the area for anything they could use. He spotted a large rock not far from them. "I'll grab that." He crouched low and moved quickly, his heart racing as he picked up the rock and returned to Lyra's side. "On the count of 3, we throw it toward the trees over there. Ready?" Lyra nodded, her expression fierce with determination. 1, 2, 3. Together, they hurled the rock as hard as they could. It landed with a loud thud against the ground, sending vibrations through the clearing. The creatures immediately turned their attention toward the noise, growling as they moved away from Alex and Lyra. "Now," Alex shouted, and they took off in the opposite direction, sprinting through the underbrush as fast as their legs would carry them. They didn't stop running until they reached the edge of the forest, breathless and wide-eyed. Alex could hardly believe they had made it. "Did we lose them?" Lyra panted, glancing back over her shoulder. "I think so," Alex replied, trying to calm his racing heart. "But we can't let our guard down. They could still be looking for us." Lyra nodded, her expression serious. "We need to find a safe place to hide and come up with our next move." As they caught their breath, they began to formulate a plan. Together, they would not only protect Lyra, but also uncover the mysteries behind her pursuers. United in their mission, they felt an unbreakable bond forming, stronger than anything they had faced before. With newfound determination, they set off deeper into the woods, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them in this strange and unpredictable world. As Alex and Lyra ventured deeper into the forest, the dense trees loomed overhead like ancient guardians, their leaves whispering secrets of the world around them. The air was thick with anticipation, a silent promise of the challenges they would face ahead. The sounds of nature surrounded them, the rustle of leaves, the chirping of distant birds, and the occasional snap of a twig underfoot. Yet beneath these familiar sounds, Alex could feel the weight of the danger that still lingered, the threat of the alien creatures still fresh in their minds. "Where do you think we should go?" Alex asked, scanning their surroundings for any signs of shelter or safety. Lyra paused, her gaze fixed on the path ahead. "There's a grove not far from here," she said. "It's where I used to go to hide from the others when I felt threatened. It's secluded and has plenty of cover." "Sounds perfect," Alex replied, feeling a sense of relief wash over him at the thought of finding a safe haven. "Lead the way." As they moved through the underbrush, Alex couldn't help but admire Lyra's agility. She seemed to glide effortlessly between the trees, her movements fluid and graceful. He found himself inspired by her resilience and strength, a stark contrast to the fear that had gripped him since their encounter with the alien creatures. After a few minutes of navigating the dense foliage, they arrived at the grove. It was a small clearing surrounded by tall, thick trees, their trunks adorned with vibrant green moss. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on the ground, creating a serene atmosphere that felt almost magical. "This is it," Lyra said, her eyes brightening. "We can rest here and figure out our next steps." They settled into the grove, grateful for the reprieve. Alex took a moment to catch his breath, his heart still racing from their narrow escape. "What do we do now?" he asked, his voice steadying as he focused on the task at hand. "We need to find a way to communicate with your world," Lyra replied, her expression serious. "If my people are searching for me, they might not realize the danger that's involved. We need to warn them before it's too late." Alex nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "But how? We don't have any technology, and those creatures will be searching for us." Lyra thought for a moment before speaking. "There might be a way. I know of an old transmitter located in the abandoned outpost on the other side of the forest. It hasn't been used in years, but it could still work. If we can reach it, we might be able to send a signal." "That's a great idea," Alex exclaimed, feeling the surge of hope. "But it's a long way, and we have no idea what we might encounter on the way." "True," Lyra agreed, her brow furrowed in thought. "But we can't stay here for long. The longer we wait, the more time the creatures have to regroup and come after us. We need to act quickly." "Okay, let's go," Alex said, determination settling in. "We'll stick together and watch each other's backs." They set off again, moving cautiously through the forest, their senses heightened as they remained vigilant for any signs of danger. The path was winding and treacherous, and Alex felt a mix of excitement and anxiety coursing through him. He was on an adventure, one that had shifted his perception of reality in ways he never thought possible. As they walked, they began to share stories about their lives. Alex learned that Lyra had been on Earth for a few months, sent on a mission to gather information about humanity. She spoke of her home planet, a place of breathtaking beauty and advanced technology, where her people lived in harmony with nature. "Why did you leave your world?" Alex asked, intrigued by her tale. Lyra hesitated, a shadow crossing her features. "I wanted to understand more about your species. There's a lot of misunderstanding between our worlds, and I hope to bridge that gap." Alex nodded, understanding the importance of her mission. "It's admirable. But it must be hard to feel caught between two worlds." "It is," Lyra admitted, a hint of sadness in her voice. "I didn't expect to find someone like you here, someone who cares about my well-being." Alex felt a warmth in his chest at her words. "You've shown me a whole new perspective on life. I never thought I'd be involved in something like this, but now I can't imagine turning back." As they continued their journey, the atmosphere shifted. The trees grew denser, and the sounds of nature faded into an eerie silence. Alex's heart began to race again as he sensed the change, and Lyra's expression hardened. "Stay close," she warned, her eyes scanning their surroundings. "We need to be careful." Suddenly, a rustle in the bushes caught their attention. Alex's heart raced as he turned to look, ready to face whatever was lurking in the shadows. But to their surprise, a small creature emerged, a raccoon, its beady eyes shining in the fading light. "It's just a raccoon," Alex said, letting out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Lyra chuckled softly. "Not everything in this forest is dangerous, you know." They resumed their journey, the tension easing slightly as they navigated through the thick undergrowth. As they approached the outskirts of the forest, Alex could see the outlines of the abandoned outpost in the distance, its structure silhouetted against the sky. "There it is," Lyra said, her voice a mix of excitement and apprehension. "We need to get inside quickly." As they approached the outpost, they noticed signs of decay, broken windows, rusted metal, and overgrown vines. It was clear that no one had been here in a long time, but the potential for danger still loomed. "Let's check for any creatures before we go inside," Alex suggested, peering around the perimeter of the building. They moved cautiously, listening for any signs of life. The silence was almost deafening, and Alex could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on them. He was acutely aware of how vulnerable they were, out in the open with nowhere to hide. "I think it's clear," Lyra said, glancing back at him. "We should go in." Taking a deep breath, they stepped inside the outpost. The interior was dark and musty, with dust motes dancing in the shafts of light that broke through the broken windows. Alex felt a shiver run down his spine as he surveyed the area, feeling a mix of trepidation and determination. "Where's the transmitter?" he asked, trying to suppress the sense of foreboding that settled over him. "Follow me," Lyra replied, leading the way deeper into the building. They navigated through narrow hallways and rooms filled with debris, remnants of what once was a bustling hub of activity. Finally, they reached a large room at the back of the outpost. In the center stood the transmitter, a complex machine covered in dust and cobwebs. Lyra approached it with a sense of reverence, her eyes lighting up as she examined the device. "This is it," she exclaimed, brushing off the dust. "If it still works, we can send a signal to my people." "Can you fix it?" Alex asked, feeling the surge of hope once again. "I can try," Lyra replied, her expression focused as she began inspecting the wires and components. As she worked, Alex kept watch, listening intently for any signs of danger. Time felt suspended in the air, each passing second heavy with uncertainty. Suddenly, the sound of a loud crash echoed from outside, shattering the silence and sending both of them into a panic. "They're here," Alex shouted, instinctively moving to block the entrance. Lyra's eyes widened in alarm. "I need more time," she pleaded, her hands moving swiftly over the device. "Just do your best," Alex urged, glancing back toward the entrance where shadows moved ominously. The growls of the alien creatures filled the air, echoing ominously. As Lyra continued her work, Alex's heart raced. He was determined to protect her, but he knew that time was running out. The creatures were closing in, and their growls grew louder, more frantic. "Almost there," Lyra shouted, her voice filled with urgency. Just then, a figure appeared at the entrance, silhouetted against the fading light. Alex's heart dropped as he recognized the creature's outline. It was one of the aliens, and it had found them. "Lyra!" Alex shouted, readying himself to confront the creature. "I'm ready," she yelled back, her fingers poised above the controls of the transmitter. In that moment, Alex knew they had to act fast. Together, they would stand against the threat that loomed before them. They were a team, bound by their shared struggle and unwavering determination to protect each other. With a fierce resolve, Alex prepared to defend their only chance at communication, knowing that whatever happened next would change everything. As the alien creature loomed in the doorway, its eyes glinting with a predatory intensity, Alex felt a surge of adrenaline rush through him. The air thickened with tension, and he instinctively moved closer to Lyra, ready to shield her from whatever threat this being posed. The moment felt surreal, caught between the world he knew and the chaotic unknown that had entered his life. "Stay back!" Alex shouted, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. He positioned himself in front of Lyra, who was still focused on the transmitter, her fingers dancing across the controls with urgency. The alien creature hesitated, its head tilting slightly as if assessing the situation. It was taller than Alex, with elongated limbs and a skin texture that shimmered under the dim light of the abandoned outpost. Its features were both frightening and strangely captivating, with deep-set eyes that seemed to hold a wealth of knowledge and emotion. Lyra glanced up from her work, her expression resolute. "I can't hold this signal much longer. We need to get it working now." The creature made a low growling noise, stepping forward as if trying to gauge Alex's intentions. In that instant, Alex felt a rush of fear mixed with a strange sense of empathy. He realized that this alien, despite its intimidating appearance, might not be the mindless predator he had imagined. "Wait," Alex said, lowering his voice as he took a cautious step forward. "Let's try to communicate. Maybe it doesn't want to hurt us." Lyra shot him a worried glance but nodded, understanding the desperation in his voice. "If it attacks, we have to be ready to fight," she warned, her eyes darting back to the transmitter. The creature paused, its gaze shifting between Alex and Lyra. Alex's heart raced as he reached into his pocket, pulling out a small flashlight. He turned it on, using the beam to illuminate the area around them, hoping it would provide a sign of peace. "We're not your enemies," he said slowly, trying to convey his intentions with his tone and posture. To his surprise, the creature halted, its body language shifting. It appeared to relax slightly, lowering its arms and tilting its head further, as if curious. Alex took a deep breath, sensing a momentary connection. "We're trying to help. I'm Alex, and this is Lyra. We mean no harm." Lyra, still working on the transmitter, spoke up. "We just want to send a message to my people. They're searching for me. If we can warn them, we can avoid a conflict." The alien regarded them with what seemed like a mix of confusion and interest. Its eyes glimmered, and it took a cautious step closer. Suddenly, it spoke, the sound a series of clicks and hisses that made Alex's skin crawl. But then, to his astonishment, Lyra responded, her voice soft and soothing. "Please, let us help you," she said in the same language, her eyes locking onto the creature's. "We can work together. There's a threat here that we need to face, and we can't do it alone." The creature paused, and for a moment, the room fell silent, the only sound being the faint hum of the transmitter. Then it stepped back, allowing Alex and Lyra to see the doorway behind it. Alex glanced at Lyra, who nodded encouragingly. "I think it's willing to listen," she whispered, her fingers still moving to stabilize the transmitter. "Keep talking." Alex felt a renewed sense of hope as he addressed the creature once more. "We know your kind might be misunderstood, but if you help us, we can stop the real danger that threatens both our worlds." The alien regarded him with those deep eyes, and after what felt like an eternity, it slowly nodded. Alex's heart raced with relief, but he knew they had to move quickly. "Let's get this signal sent out before it changes its mind," he urged Lyra. "Almost there," she called, her voice rising with urgency. The creature stepped aside fully, allowing them access to the transmitter. Alex quickly joined Lyra at the machine, observing her rapid movements as she worked to patch the device together. "Do you think it will work?" he asked, glancing at the creature, which now stood at the entrance, watching intently. "I believe so," Lyra replied, her focus unwavering. "But we need power. There should be a backup generator in the other room. I'll stay here. You go find it." Without a moment's hesitation, Alex dashed down the narrow hallway, his heart pounding in his chest. He could hear the creature behind him, its presence a reminder of the danger they faced. He needed to act fast. In the dimly lit corridor, Alex found the door to a small room marked with faded symbols. He pushed it open to reveal a tangled mess of wires and machinery, It looked like it hadn't been used in ages, but he could see the glimmer of potential. Rummaging through the debris, he spotted a small generator, dusty and covered in cobwebs. "This has to be it," he muttered to himself, quickly clearing away the clutter to access it. He began to reconnect wires, his hands moving with a mix of urgency and determination. As he worked, the growls of the alien creatures echoed in the distance, reminding him of the stakes at hand. He needed to hurry. With a final connection, he hit the switch. The generator sputtered to life, its mechanical hum filling the room with a reassuring sound. "Got it," Alex shouted, feeling a rush of triumph. He hurried back to the main room. Finding Lyra still focused on the transmitter, the alien creature still standing guard. "Did you find it?" she asked, her eyes lighting up. "Yes, it's working," Alex replied, connecting the generator to the transmitter. "Perfect," Lyra exclaimed, her fingers flying over the controls as the transmitter powered up. A green light flickered to life, signaling that they were ready to send their message. The alien creature stepped closer, its gaze fixed on the transmitter with an intensity that made Alex's heart race. "Now what?" he asked. "Now we send the signal," Lyra replied, her expression determined. She pressed a series of buttons, and the machine whirred to life, sending out a series of beeps that echoed through the room. As the signal transmitted, Alex felt a surge of hope. "Will it reach your people?" he asked, glancing nervously at the creature. "It should," Lyra said, her voice filled with determination. "We just have to hope they're listening." But before they could celebrate, a loud crash erupted outside, shaking the walls of the outpost. The alien creatures had found them, and they were coming fast. "Quick, we need to barricade the door," Alex shouted, adrenaline surging through him as they rushed to push heavy debris against the entrance. Just as they secured the door, the first creature slammed against it, the sound reverberating through the building. Alex's heart pounded as he glanced at Lyra. "What now?" "Now we hold on and hope the signal reaches them before it's too late," Lyra replied, her eyes wide with fear and resolve. The creatures outside began to claw at the door, their growls echoing in the confined space, a chilling reminder of the danger they faced. In that moment, Alex realized that they were not just fighting for their lives, they were fighting for the future of both their worlds. "Together," he said, looking at Lyra with unwavering determination, "we'll make it through this." And with that, they prepared to face whatever came next, united in their resolve to protect each other and find a way to bridge the gap between their two worlds. The battle had just begun, but they were ready to fight.